Hello and welcome to Ageless Rock Channel, where megalithic sites are seen with megalithic lens. Anyone who knows about Mayan civilization will know that Tikal is a very large archaeological site. It is not just a few enormous pyramids that keeps attracting tourists. The ancient city is so large that it makes you wonder if it is possible that a civilization so big and so advanced can disappear in history so fast. I started my first video on Tikal with Pyramid 1, also known as the Great Jaguar. This 9-step pyramid has a lintel depicting a king seated on a jaguar throne carved on sapodilla wood instead of stone. Then I move on to Pyramid Temple 2, which has 2 masks on the top and therefore known as Temple of the Mast. It is facing Pyramid Temple 1 and therefore these two are known as twin temples. As you can see, Pyramid Temple 3 is a huge monument that will blow your mind if you are standing at the base looking up. Temple 4 has a depiction of a serpent with 2 heads, so it is called Temple of Two-Headed Serpent. The original name is lost and the god worshipped here is unknown. Temple 5 has no mast, no jaguar, no serpent and no priest, so there is no special name attached to it by Western archaeologists. Temple 6 has inscriptions on the side and the back, so it was named as such, but even with all the inscriptions, we still don't know what is going on here. I put together all the imposing structures for comparison. If you visit Tikal on vacation and stand in front of the stairway, you will be roughly the size of the red dot. The amount of limestone and quicklime for these pyramids is a mind-boggling undertaking that will not leave the Mayas clueless when the Europeans arrived. It was the Europeans who convinced the Mayas that these are temples. They are squares or rectangles at the base and were meant to worship a god. If you look at the shrines carefully, they are nothing but a pile of stones. The chambers are long but very narrow. There isn't much room for you to do anything. There are no sacred objects here and neither do we know what god was ever worshipped here. I also covered the Lost World Pyramid, which is not a temple, tomb or a palace, so it is believed to be for ceremonial purposes. But we have yet to find out what ceremonies would command such monuments to be constructed. But 4 of the big 6 pyramids are outside of Tikal downtown city center. The busy downtown of Tikal, that also consists of Pyramid 1 and Pyramid 2, has North Acropolis and Central Acropolis. The Northern Acropolis has several pyramids and structures that will make you wonder how and why would Mayas build so many on top of a bedrock. You can tell from the old map that the numbering of the pyramids has changed, but the idea that so many pyramids were needed on top of a platform is just baffling. Building pyramids is not just seemingly easy, but there seems to be an unexplained obsession that buildings has to be piles of stones in step pyramid style. It is said that 4 kings were identified as kings who were buried here. So it is also not wrong to say that this is a necropolis, but there is no mention of skeletal remains. Archaeologists rely on inscriptions to conclude who were buried here. Central Acropolis was developed over a period of 500 years in an east-west orientation. It is a large area with 43 structures identified. The ancient city of Tikal is broken into several other sections simply because it is such a big area to cover. This video is about other structures that made up Tikal ancient city. So let's start with Temple 22, which is a big structure that sits on top of the basal platform that measures 100 meters long by 80 meters wide and is 9 meters above the bedrock. That is a crazy amount of rock needed to remodel the landscape. Archaeologists discovered a tomb in 1959 under Temple 34, which was constructed over two other previous structures, but there is no mention of skeletal remains found in the tomb. We don't really know what is this super awesome structure is for. It is believed to be a temporary residence with a few burials found. At the central Acropolis, there is a structure known as 5D-46, which is believed to be once a residential place for King Chak Tok Ichaak. In this structure, there is a tomb labeled as Tomb B, and in the tomb, there is one interesting artifact found. It is a cylindrical vase with a depiction of a person referred to as Yaks Nun Ahin II, based on the hieroglyphs. Towards the south side of central Acropolis, there is a structure known as Palace of 5 Stories. This structure is a pyramidal design with terraced levels. Each floor has 2 galleries that depict the life of the ruler Yikiin. So it is believed that this ruler lived here. It is estimated to be a colossal height of 27.5 meters tall. The first story has 2 chambers and the total length is 20.65 meters long but oddly narrow at 1.4 meters wide. The second story is 20.5 meters long and also oddly narrow at 1.4 meters wide. If I were to put them in proportion, the chambers will look very odd for palatial rooms. The third story has a central chamber 18.97 meters long by 1.97 meters wide and has an extremely thick wall of 1.45 meters thick. At this level, Teobert Maler noted that about half meter of soil has accumulated inside the chamber. This cannot be explained by just animals and plants over many centuries, which is mostly about 10 to 20 centimeters thick. This mystery is also noted in other palaces in Tikal. The fourth story has a gallery 15.32 meters long but only 1.1 meters wide. The fifth story is badly damaged and is assumed to be 2 meters less than fourth story, which means it is about 13 meters long. If it is neither a tomb nor a temple, then it is a palace. It's a simple deduction, but where are the doors for all the entrances? Palace of 2 stories was well covered by the dense jungle and took great effort to reveal the real structure. The entire wall-to-wall measuring from outside is 33.6 meters or 110 feet long. The walls of the north chambers are smoothly covered with the finest white stucco and displayed a number of extremely interesting incised drawings. The second story has a row of 3 chambers, each with an entrance on the south. This structure has so many chambers which are just long and very narrow. I'm wondering who actually lived here and how were these rooms actually being used. Another interesting structure is known as Palace of 2 stories and 21 chambers. The front chambers on level 1 are 1.75 meters wide. The middle chamber is 8.3 meters long. That will give you an idea of the typical long and narrow rooms. Also note that the second rooms without front door behind those first rooms are very dark even during the day. I wonder how is that useful. The Palace of Vertical Columns is an amazing structure. It is a structure with a facade that looks like vertical columns, which is why it is also known as Acanaladuras Palace in Spanish. The eastern side is very much intact and measures 58.87 meters long. The current ruin has 28 rooms still intact, but it's believed it might have up to 50 rooms. Also worth noting is that although it is called a palace, archaeologists also say they don't know what is this structure for. No one can imagine how an ancient king and warriors would be doing here walking around this structure with long but narrow rooms. The length of this palace is 41 meters. The middle chamber is 8.51 meters long but only 2.18 meters deep. It is also interesting to note that it is exactly north-south based on magnetic needle. This structure may have been once a structure with 42 rooms when newly completed. But with all this guessing, we are also guessing how this was once a palace. There is another palace with many chambers on a massive substructure, 20 to be exact. It is 66 meters long and is simply called Palace of 20 Chambers. The large horizontal chambers are 7.2 meters long, while the shorter ones are 3.4 meters long. They are all 2.27 meters wide. This is another structure noted for its north-south orientation based on magnetic needle. Between Temple 5 and the Lost World Pyramid, there is a row of 7 temples you can vaguely see from Google Maps. They look the same but are actually slightly different in size. The temple facade is facing west and the central temple is the largest and has a massive roof cone. This is the plaza of 7 temples that boasts of 25,000 square meters or 270,000 square feet in area size. It is part of a square that is made up of other large pyramids known as palaces. They are described as having long and narrow chambers. For example, the middle palace in the south side of the square has a gallery that measures 27.83 meters by only 2.05 meters. There are many structures in Tikal to be recorded in a single book, let alone a short video presentation. So I will quickly mention them since they are already found in the book by Maler and Tozer. There is a palace of 3 stories with 3 chambers. It looks like a 15 meters or 48 feet tall structure with long rectangular chambers on the inside. Structure 10 looks like a 9 meter tall at the bottom and the top looks like 9 meters tall. They all have long and very long but narrow chambers. 5 chambers are somewhat almost squares. Structure 12 has very long and narrow chambers, while structure 13 has smaller chambers and almost square chambers. Structure 17 has very long and narrow chambers and comes with very thick walls. You can be sure that the last chamber is very dark all the time. Pretty useless for any purpose I can imagine. Structure 18 has chambers that make no sense to me. Structure 42 has very thick walls, but the chambers are of little to no use I can think of. Structure 44 and 47 are made of carefully measured rectangular rooms. The room in blue box will be dark all the time as lights will have to reflect 3 times before you get to see your hands in front of your face. Row 1 and row 2 of structure 51 is more like a jigsaw puzzle, while row 3 is connected in a row. The rest of the rooms are small rectangular chambers that make no sense to me but feels like it is an intelligent design at the same time. Structure 55 has a long and narrow chamber with a mindlessly huge wall. What a waste of construction materials if all they wanted is a room about 15 feet long by 4 feet wide. Structure 59 has a very long chamber with 3 chambers and only the middle one is connected. Structure 60, 74, and 89 will be a repeat of long and narrow chambers, which I'm sure you are bored by now. The only pattern I see here is that these are structures with chambers which no one seems to know how to use them, whether it is a tomb, temple, or palace. The locals found them to be useless and didn't bother to even recycle them. Even more troubling is that Mahler noted that these brave locals in broad daylight will shiver so much at the thought of going into these pyramids at night that no amount of money can make them stay overnight alone in such places that sends demonic aura into their spine. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this short presentation on Chambers of Tikal with an aura of mystery. See you in the next video and have a wonderful day. This is Berniong signing out. Yaan ki ilik ula ak ki in.